Hey team, it's time for that staff video update. I just recorded one and it was about 10-11 minutes, so I'm gonna see if I can do this a little faster. First, I hope you take a little bit of time this week to celebrate, to relax, to enjoy time with friends and family. Hopefully you take a little bit of time, by that I mean an hour to 4 hours, to do something that refuels your tank. I think that's important during days off and on holidays. Which I know for some of you, you're not going to be able to do that because of schedule, because of what you've or your family have already said yes to. So try to carve out a little time to and savor some of the simple things in life. Studies show that the more we do that, the more we feel like we are thriving overall. The busier we are and the more stuff that we get, our capacity to enjoy or savor the simple things goes down. So remember that this holiday. And thank God that we get to be a part of this incredible country with its freedoms and its prosperity. We have a lot to be thankful for. We also have a lot to be thankful for because this weekend we kick off our camp season, our second part of camp season with high school camp and fusion camp. And we have over 578 students signed up to go, which camps play a pivotal role in many people's faith story. It was the integral initiative part that started the spiritual journey for many people. And so make that your prayer as we step into this weekend. Keep those cards in front of you and let's celebrate within our huddles this weekend and with the people that we talk to, that we get to be a part of a church that's continuing to make an investment and a difference in the next generation. This weekend, I will be kicking off our Titus series, Transforming a Nation. And even though Crete is an island off of what was modern day Greece, and it probably wasn't known for being a nation, it was under Roman rule, but Paul was writing to Titus, basically a first century leadership book. It's one of the first leadership books written within the church era, and it's really meant to give practical and some theological, but practical instructions to Titus on how to establish the church, to influence the community, to transform a nation or the island of Crete. That's the vision, is that when the gospel takes root in us, it changes us in such a way that we begin to influence everything and everyone around us. So we'll be kind of talking through that exegetically ish over the next few weeks. And so we're going to be inviting our church into the Titus reading plan. If you haven't signed up for that, you can do that now. The instructions for that are in the email. This past week, if you know, I was at Alex Woody's church. Well, he's the executive pastor there. He used to be on staff with us at West Toledo and then transitioned into oversight over student ministries. And then he and Brandy felt like he needed to get back involved in the secular workforce, reaching unchurched people. And so he got involved in the Border Patrol for a little bit and sensed that that's not where God wanted him. And so they basically said, okay, God, where do you want us to go next? And that opened a few doors and conversations for Brandy to move back to her home church and her home school, like the school that she went to when she was a kid. Even though she moved around a lot, her family was in Alaska for about 9 years of her childhood. And so they went back there kind of open-handed, and God opened an opportunity for Alex to jump on and become eventually the executive pastor. And it was fun to hear and see some of the ways he's taken the things that he's learned at Cedar Creek and he's infusing them into the life of this church that in some ways is very different and in other ways very similar, into I'd call it a dynamic and complicated team environment. And so continue to cheer for and pray for Alex as he continues to lead and influence in this assignment. And I was just reminded how thankful I am to be here in this church with all of you. My wife and I, Alex said that he part of the reason I went out there is because he's like, hey, I'll pay your way and your wife's way if you guys want to come to Alaska. I ran into him a few months ago and I'm like, man, I cannot turn down that opportunity. And so Lauren and I got to spend a few days looking at whales, watching the midnight sun. Didn't get dark until about 1:30 in the morning, which was kind of crazy. But the last day that we were there, Alex asked if we would be interested in going to see a glacier on some side-by-sides, some razors, 4-seater razors where we would share driving or whatever. And I'm like, see a glacier? For sure. Like, are we going to be back in time to catch my plane? He's like, no worries, man. I'll have you back in time to get on a flight. And so we said yes. And I'm not going to tell you all the details of the story, but here's the gist of it. I have a knack of finding myself in unique situations on the trips that I take. I mean, a few years ago with Josh and Nate and Luke, the guide that we were with asked if we were interested in an adventure, and I said, sure. He says, if you have $100, I'll take you to see something that's amazing. That's the way Carlos said it. And so sure enough, we show up on a beach with some random Hondurans, and all we had to turn over was our passports, all of our money, and our cell phones. That's it. Give them to a stranger. And we got on this basically metal dinghy, and we started out in the ocean, and 45 minutes later, 45 wave smacking moments later, we found ourselves on an island full of wild monkeys. It was a great experience, but there was a part of it, if you just ask the guys, that we were a little concerned we might die. Or Lydia. I took Lydia to Honduras, and that's when the COVID epidemic broke out all across the world. And we were almost stuck in Honduras. They said all the flights are canceled. Can you imagine like Lydia trapped in Honduras with me? Oh my goodness. Well, this trip, Lauren and I, without getting into all of the details, did get to see a glacier, but on the way back, we found ourselves stuck. And for a moment, neither of the side-by-sides were working, and we were stuck in glacier water up to our waist. Definitely not sure we were going to get it out of there in time to make our flight. And so here's what I've learned. The best stories, and yes, there's more to share with that story, the best stories almost always involve a sucky situation. The best stories that you and I tell, the moments that we laugh about in retrospect, and that's not true of every sucky situation. There are some situations that are just terrible. But the best stories almost always involve a situation that you find yourself in. You're like, I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. And so the next time you find yourself in one of those, just remember, this is probably going to be a really good story to tell someday. Like, I'm going to enjoy reminiscing about this and even laughing about it, because that's where we're at now. Yeah, yes, we did get home and we survived, but there was a moment where it was tough, which leads me to the second principle. Your attitude in the middle of the sucky situation makes all the difference. Like, we could have been freaked out about making our flight, being lost in the middle of the Alaskan wilderness without cell phone service and no real way. I mean, we'd have to walk, but there's no roads, there's no town, there aren't people around. I mean, I was a little worried for a minute that I was going to be like bear dinner. So for a second, but our attitudes, Alex, like whatever you need done, Josh, our guide, whatever he asks. I mean, Lauren, laughing and videotaping and helping right along. I mean, we were all getting into the mud and trying to help each other out in a mosquito-infested, swampy, glacier water wilderness, right? And eventually we got out, and now it's a story to tell. But your attitude in those moments matters. And so I think that's true, not just in life, but in leadership. There are some situations that we're going to find ourselves in at the weekend service where things are challenging, and it's just going to be a story to tell. Eventually, at some point, it will, and hopefully, maybe even one of the good ones. And your attitude in that is what makes us better together. As you step into Fusion Camp this week, as we continue to do Serve Day, as we continue to level up our leadership, we're going to find ourselves in some tough situations. Let's make sure that we keep the right perspective and the right attitude, leaning into better together and celebrating progress in such a way that at the end of the story, yes, we can acknowledge that wasn't fun, but man, it is a good story to tell. I mean, when you open the pages of the Bible, don't you see that time and time again? I mean, isn't that what it means to be on the life-changing adventure with Jesus? Yes, there are moments where you're touching glaciers. And yes, there are moments where you're up to your waist in glacier mud water, unsure if you're going to be able to get this little ATV out of the hole that it's stuck in. So let's continue to trust God and lean into that together. Thanks. I appreciate you guys. And yes, I saved you about 2.5 minutes. So enjoy the week. We'll see you soon.